Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today we are taking a look at another hunter build. We're actually kind of on a streak. But this build we're checking out in this video is truly incredible. Like 2 weeks ago, it was actually pretty trash and unusable due to some bugs, but now it works, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that this is one of the best builds for hunters right now, and it will continue to be so as we move on to Renegades and beyond. Some things you can expect from this build include insane damage resistance and survivability, infinite healing, and ability spam to the point that it feels like you're in an actual fighting game. All of this comes together to make our hunter one of the best options for any activity right now. But before we begin, we do need to do the usual YouTube shoutouts. There are timestamps for the video down below that way you can scroll through and find whatever information you might need. There's also a dim link in the description, and that way you can grab this build for yourself with ease. Also, now for some statistics, a vast majority of you guys are not subscribed, and it would help me out a ton if you do click the subscribe button. It's free for you, and it means that you'll see my builds and informative testing content within your sub feed. Also, if you are a member of the community and you feel like engaging with me and others further, then I do have a Discord server linked down below in the description, which I would really appreciate you joining. But now, getting on with the build, the first thing we're going to talk about is our exotic armor piece. The option here is one that focuses on survivability, and that is Gifted Conviction. You might remember this exotic from some meta prismatic hunter builds a while ago, but now, by far, Arc Hunter makes the best use of it. This exotic reads, activating Ascension or Tempest Strike throws bouncing explosives at nearby targets that jolt and damage them. Jolting nearby targets grants you damage resistance. The first thing we can take a look at is those bouncing explosives. Like I said in the description, these will spawn whenever you use our Tempest Strike or Ascend. You can actually use those in sequence, and you'll see all of these projectiles spawning one after another. Now, as for what these projectiles really do for us, well, it isn't damage. These little balls actually do very little of that, but rather we use them because they all jolt enemies and then proc that jolt for a roundabout way of dealing damage. That effectively means that whenever we use either of the mentioned abilities, they have a massively increased area of effect. And then directly coming off of that improved jolt, we have the second part of this exotic chest piece. Whenever we jolt anything within 15 meters, be it from an ability, the chest piece, or even our weapons, we will get a stack of a bespoke resist. This resist can be stacked up to 3 times. Visually, it says ×4 as we can see here, but the first jolt gives us ×2. It's weird, I know. But this will cap out at a 50% damage resist value. That's just the starting point for damage resistance and survivability in this build. We'll be able to stack a lot more, making us really hard to kill. Now, leaving our exotic armor piece, we have our weapon choices. If you want to use an exotic, you can, but whether it's an exotic or legendary weapon, I would recommend having something that jolts. So on the exotic side of things, that's most easily going to be either Edge of Concurrence or Lodestar. And on the legendary side of things, Unfall, Indebted Kindness, or Antedate are all great options with access to either Volt Shot or Jolting Feedback. But realistically, you don't need a single one of these. As you might be seeing in the background footage, I'm barely using my weapons, and I definitely don't have an exotic equipped. That's simply because you don't need it. This build is totally self-sufficient with the subclass and exotic armor piece alone. So moving on, let's take a look at that subclass. Starting with our super, you can use either Arc Strider or Gathering Storm. The latter will be the better option in most in-game activities. For our class ability, we'll be using Gambler's Dodge to refund our melee ability whenever we use that. As for the chosen melee ability, this is going to be Combination Blow, due to the massive buffs that it recently received, allowing it to interact with our aspects. And if you didn't know, this melee ability grants us stacks on melee kills that increase our outgoing melee damage up to plus 400%. This ability also heals on kills and refunds our dodge, making it a very potent ability. Then our grenade can really be whatever. I actually found myself not convinced on one specific grenade ability. Pulse Grenade does pretty good damage, but you could also use Flashbang Grenade for the anti-champion attributes. But now for our first aspect, we will be using Tempest Strike. This will override our melee ability while sliding, much like Consecration. Looking at it in-game, this melee has quite generous AoE, and it's activated just like Consecration, as I said. Where its damage is concerned, it deals 498 damage at base while also jolting enemies. But then, if we get kills with it, including multiple in one use, we can see Combination Blow activating as we get Combination Blow ×3 as a buff. And then our Tempest Strike damage will increase to 2,487. Also, do remember, this ability now counts as Combination Blow itself, so it will refund our class ability while healing us on kills. and it also activates our exotic armor piece on top of that. This is very strong in this build, and we will be spamming it so much. But back in our subclass, for the second aspect, we're running Ascension. This ability says that we can consume our dodge while airborne to give us some upward lift and jolt everything around us while making us amplified. Endgame, there honestly isn't too much to see. We can just ascend and see the enemies around us become jolted while we get amplified for 15 seconds. If you don't recall, amplified is a 15% stacking damage resist. It's also important to note that our underlying dodge ability does get used when ascending. So we can see this in this string where we Tempest Strike, then Ascend, we get our melee back before we even hit the ground. That combo is also what's going to be our bread and butter, and we will be repeating that pretty much as often as possible. Now, continuing on to our fragments, the first one we use is Spark of Resistance. This will give us 25% more damage resist when nearby 3 enemies. That stacks with the previously mentioned exotic armor piece DR and amplified DR, making us very tanky. Our next fragment is Spark of Feedback, which causes our melee to do more damage when we receive melee damage. This honestly won't happen all the time, but it's just nice to have. Then we have Spark of Focus, which will be a source of redundancy on class ability energy by increasing its regen whenever we're sprinting. Then we have Spark of Ions to make ionic traces from our jolting kills. And lastly, Spark of Recharge, which will regen our abilities if we ever become critical. It's not too impactful, but it can help if the build loop drops. And moving on from our subclass, this is where we get to talk about armor stats. For this build, we want to heavily invest into the melee stat, as this will allow us to gain combination blow stacks easier and nuke higher health enemies when at max stacks. So for this build, we'll be attempting to get near 200 melee. If your armor sucks, like mine, then there's a chance that's not possible, and instead you should just invest what you can. As you can see here, I'm sitting at 132. I wish that was much higher. But after melee, it's definitely a good idea to have high class stats so that our dodge is always on a short cooldown in case the loop drops. And after that, I would say the third most important stat is super, so you can really spam it. Our weapons, grenade, and health stat don't mean a whole lot in this build, so you can kind of just forgo those. But before we move on, let's circle back around to the 200 melee stat and see that with max combination blow stacks. That makes our max damage value now 3,233 on every single uppercut. That's quite a lot, and actually not our cap either, as it can go up a bit more if you do get meleeed before doing your uppercut. But for example's sake, this is what you can expect if you manage to go full in on your melee stat. But now moving on from armor stats, we have armor mods. On the helmet, we have a hands-on to get super energy whenever we get kills with our Tempest Strike, and a siphon that matches our most used weapon. On our arms, we have triple heavy-handed for a shorter cooldown between making orbs with our melee ability. On our chest piece, we have my favorite ammo generation mod, plus some resists. I honestly might make a t-shirt out of that at this point. Then on the legs, we have a double recuperation to get a chunk of health back on orb pickup, and a scavenger for whatever special weapons we might be using. Then on the class item, we will be using a special finisher for free special ammo, a powerful attraction to suck up orbs whenever we dodge or ascend, and a distribution to get a bit more ability energy for everything whenever we do the same. And moving on from our armor and mods, we have the artifact. Within, there's actually like nothing. This heavily future-proofs this build, meaning it will be extremely potent even once this artifact is gone, and it will likely just be stronger as new stuff is featured. I would recommend right now that you use Shield Crush though, as this gives us some grenade regen when amplified, which we always are. Now, that's about everything covered, and we can now talk about how to use this build. To do so, when beginning an engagement, we need to focus on gaining combination blow stacks. This is easiest by looking for some low health enemies and using your Tempest Strike on them. Assuming you got a kill, or 2, or 3, we'll be granted combination blow stacks, increasing the damage of our next uppercut. Simultaneously, after that first uppercut, ascend to jolt everything around you and give yourself massive DR. This is thanks to Gifted Conviction, which will also be spawning its jolted balls on both abilities thus far. And due to our subclass setup, the Ascend should have fully refunded our melee, meaning that once you touch the ground again, you can immediately repeat what you just did. But if you now have combination blow stacks, you are dealing much more damage. At this point, you should be good to repeat those two abilities over and over. Melee kills will be healing us and refunding our dodge. We'll also be printing orbs and generating a metric ton of super energy. Let that loose, by the way, whenever you want, and do remember that you have a grenade ability. I often find myself forgetting to throw it. If the loop ever does drop though, just chill for a couple seconds, sprint around, and your dodge will come back, allowing you to restart everything with ease. This build is super simple to use and is super strong. My favorite kind of build, to be honest. And with that, thank you for getting this far into the video. Remember, there's a dim link down in the description. That way you can grab this easily. Now, if you want to support me, support the channel, a like, a comment, a subscription, joining the Discord goes a very long way. If you want to support me, support the channel, but you can't think of a comment down below, Street Fighter. And with that, as usual, I hope you are having a great day, and I hope to see you around.